Challenges. That's part of life, right? That's part of life. You know, life without challenges is boring. And that may include some challenges on the traffic, challenges on our health, and challenges of maybe relationships. And that with all these challenges, we know that the Lord's blessings are still with us and for us. Why? Because we are still here, alive, and praising Him, especially on Sabbaths. Week after week, Sabbath after Sabbath, we come and praise the Lord. So let's begin our seminar with a song that I have for us to learn. And this gives us the theme of our presentations this weekend. And so we have here what we have, may we glorify the Lord. So I just requested our pianist to play for us the accompaniment. And also, it's her first time to see the piece, but let's sing together. And this will be, we will be singing up to the last segment of our health presentations this weekend. Let's sing, May We Glorify the Lord. Okay. All right, maybe start just, okay. We are not our own, we are bought with a price, and our bodies are a living sacrifice. They're the dwelling place of thy Spirit of Christ. So let's glorify the Lord in our bodies, in our minds, in our spirits. May we glorify the Lord in the way we live, in the praise we give. May we glorify the Lord. We'll be singing this a little faster as we become more familiar with the notes, because the right tempo would be, we are not our own, we are bought with a price, and our bodies are a living sacrifice. They're the dwelling place of the Spirit of Christ. May we glorify the Lord. So let's glorify the Lord. In our bodies, in our minds, in our spirits, may we glorify the Lord in the way we live, in the praise we give. May we glorify the Lord. It's a beautiful song, right? Yes. Amen. And our pianist will be more familiar with the notes, and so we can sing it a little faster with the right tempo. Okay, so our topic is on lifestyle choices, lifetime consequences. So I don't know if I have to place it myself here. Thank you, Danielle. That's, yeah, and yes, and our pianist is Danielle. All right, so may I put it here for now? I'll turn it on.
Is it on?
Over there.
Is it on?
Try to check the battery.
Okay. I can't tell if it's okay. So where does it have to be near?
Try here.
Okay. So I have to close it?
Then you have to press it. Electronics. There you go.
Yeah, that's part of a challenge, right? That's technology.
The thing works.
Okay, so what we can do, I will just probably ask you to yes. Okay. So I would like us to learn from the experience, our Bible account with the choice that Esau made. So we can read it together. Please click on the next. That the account is in Genesis 25, verses 29 to 34. So let's read it through. Now Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, "Please feed me with the same red stew, for I am weary." Therefore his name was called Edom. But Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright as of this day." And Esau said, "Look, I am about to die, so what's this birthright to me?" Then Jacob said, "Swear to me as of this day." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and a stew of lentils. Then he ate and drank, arose, and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Now with this, you know that the choice was between the birthright or the food, right? So what did Esau choose? It should have been the birthright, right? In our lesson on the last quarter, we touched something about the issue on the choice that Esau made at the time. Now, who would say that Esau made the right decision? Did he make the right choice? No. Why is it so? Which one is more important, the physical food or the birthright? Birthright. But probably others may reason that if it should have been the birthright, then what is then the birthright if you die? All right? But he wouldn't die, according to our sister there, if he would just be faint for just probably a few minutes. He could have gone to his mom and asked for food, right? Instead of selling his birthright. There could have been other choices that he could have made, or else he could just have gone to his own kitchen and prepared just probably something to eat, or he may have just grabbed some apples or any fruits there that could have fended his hunger. So then if you were Esau, what then should you have chosen? The birthright. Now, during their culture, any one of you who would like to say more about the birthright, what was the lesson that we had last quarter about the birthright? It has something to do with what? Messiah. Yes, the coming of the Messiah, the coming of the Messiah, the responsibility that goes with it, and at the same time, you have such an inheritance that would be a great blessing for you and for the generations that come after you, right? And the responsibility as well that goes with it. And such responsibility as the Messiah may come through your generation. And he just despised, according to the Bible account, he despised his birthright. He just merely sold and despised his birthright. Now let's go to the next slide. So what may have happened here? There was physical hunger, of course. What happened? What happens when you have physical hunger? You're hungry, right? There is a phenomenon we call hypoglycemia, for those of you, of course, who understand the science of health and how the body works. Then there is such term as hypoglycemia. If you find the term hypo, what does it mean? Low, right, low. It's lower than normal. It's lower than normal. And glycemia pertains to the sugar level. So if you have hypoglycemia at the time when you are hungry, or vice versa, you feel hungry because you have a transient hypoglycemia, your glucose level in the bloodstream is low, what does this mean? You might faint. Yes. Your supply of the raw material in making the energy for the body to function is just very low. So in the body there are certain normals that we call. You should have your normal level of your sugar in the bloodstream, normal sodium, normal electrolytes, normal blood pressures, and so on. So you wouldn't like those hypos and hypers on both extremes beyond these normals. Okay? So then if you feel hungry, that means that the body will need to have food. Hunger is a blessing because this gives you a signal when to eat. Without hunger, the body will not have any signal of eating because you don't feel hungry. If you are not hungry at all, instead of eating, you may not want to eat. Thus, you don't have appetite. And there is no way by which the body gets its nutrients from the food if you don't even get hungry. So then, a person who may have physical hunger may have hypoglycemia. Another one that happens. There could have been dehydration. You imagine that Esau, coming from the field in the desert, out in the desert, he must have sweat a lot, and sweating is a way of escape of the heat coming from the body. Because when a person is subjected to heat from the outside environment, then the body also, the temperature in the body increases. But that's part of how the body responds by sweating, so that the sweat that comes out would bring out the heat from the body. And thus you imagine while he was sweating, there was dehydration. And so at times when we are dehydrated and we are thirsty, we sometimes decipher this as hunger, while in fact the person is just merely dehydrated. So the others would say instead of drinking water, what they do is they eat because they thought that their thirst clues are just hunger pangs. So they tend to eat instead of just drinking water. It could have been that Esau's condition is that he had dehydration. I have experienced this when I was invited to be part of the group of scientists who went to Israel to help in the Negev desert. So we were there. I was between December to February when they invited us. We were there. And when it was not cold, we went out to explore the Negev desert. And it was really hot, especially at midday. And there was dry heat, but then you would also sweat at the same time, and thus you may tend to be dehydrated. So we know that with this could have happened with the condition of Esau. And then the next thing that happened is that there could have been an electrolyte imbalance. So if you are sweating out, so much of the sodium and the other salts in the body would come out with the sweat along with the heat of the body. And that would prompt an electrolyte imbalance. And if you have all this, then you will feel much more of hunger that you cannot even think better, right? Now, what else may have happened? There was dominance of hunger hormones. There are, in physiology, we teach different hunger hormones. It's not just one kind, or all of these hunger hormones may have kicked in, and thus, because of that, the person will need to grab the food available. So at times we may have experienced this, that at times when we are in hunger pangs, then we become irritable, and that whatever food is available, we can just eat, right? Whatever happens, you need to grab food and eat the soonest time possible. All right, what else happened after the physical hunger? There could have been a transient intellectual impairment. What does this mean? There was that inability to think and intelligibly. Well, now what happens if you try to look into the physical aspect of it? It could have, all of these conditions may have affected the functions of the mind. You see, the brain, which is the physical structure wherein it houses the ability to think and some other functions of the brain. The brain, as we know, is so much amount of water, right? Now, if you are dehydrated, the brain tends to what? To shrink, and the functions of the brain would be interrupted. So just with that water alone. Now, I mentioned to you that if you have low sugar level in the bloodstream, what happens? There is no raw material in making certain energy. And you see, the brain is the major organ of the body that would use up a lot of energy. You may be thinking your skeletal muscles would be the ones to use up so much amount of energy. It is not. It is actually the brain. Now, if you may have experienced, if you are reviewing for an exam, studying your lessons and so on and so forth, you have a lot of mental work to do. If you are stressed out, if you are under pressure, that the workload of the brain would be too high, then you feel that you can get hungry very easily. Now, if you are hungry, your glycemic level is very low, that your brain functions would be affected, then you cannot think even better. Your intellectual capacity is impaired. Now, if there is an impairment of the intellectual capacity, the decision making is going to be impaired. And thanks God, because here it is a transient one in the sense that it's just temporary. It will not stay long. How will you arrest the intellectual impairment at that time? What would you do? So as to do away with the transient intellectual impairment, what do? You eat. If you are hungry, you better eat. If you are thirsty, you better drink. Yes. So that if you eat and drink and your sugar level goes back to normal, your water level goes back to normal, then your brain functions will go back to normal. But at the time when you have those conditions, your brain functions, your intelligent decision making would be impaired, transient, or just for the meantime. Now, what then do you think is the lifetime consequence upon the decision that Esau made? When he despised his birthright, what happened? He lost his inheritance. What about the relationship of Esau to Jacob? The relationship of his mom to him, and vice versa, the relationship between, who were the parents? Huh? The parents of Jacob and Esau? You remember? Isaac and Rebekah. All right, Isaac and Rebekah. With this, then there could have been marred relationship as well, just with food at the very center of the decision making. Okay? Marred relationships. What else? Do we still have the consequences of that wrong decision even now? What about the relationships of nations in the Middle East? There are still a lot of fightings between nations. Probably that may have been linked with the decision that was made just over probably a bowl of lentils, right? A bowl of stew. Okay? Now let's look at here, that through the generations, the wrong decision was the culprit of warrings between nations, broken relationships. Now let's look at some major aspects of lifestyle choices as we relate this decision making. First is on diet. As we have seen in the story, that food was the center, the focal point of decision making. It's just food, right? But food means life, correct? Without food, there is no maintenance of bodily functions, and that you may die if there is no food. Now, what do you observe in terms of our eating and eating patterns, our eating habits? Do we generally eat healthful foods? We are trying, right? We are trying. Yes, we do. But there are temptations out there, right? If you go out to work and then you feel hungry, or even before going to work, where do we pass by? Yes, to the fast foods, where we can probably quickly grab some food. Now, I wonder why people may tend to get food from the fast foods instead of preparing their own food at home. What do you think would be the reason why people, for convenience, what else? We are always in a hurry. We are in a hurry. We don't have time. We don't have so much time to prepare our own food. The others may not know how to prepare their own food as well. So you imagine that there are people who have problems with food preparation, not only with time, but because they lack skill in food preparation. Okay? But you know, our simple food preparation is to just simply wash the fruits for breakfast, and after washing, you just eat the fruits. Is that hard to prepare? I don't think so. So it's more of our food preferences, probably. Our food preference is not on the fruits for breakfast. Now, what are our food preferences for breakfast? Young people, what do you usually like for breakfast?
Eggs and rice.
Eggs and rice. Yeah. How do you prepare the eggs?
Sunny side up.
Okay, sunny side up. Okay. Uh-huh. Okay, fried egg white. Egg white, yes. All right. What do you like for breakfast? Cereals. Cereals and bread toast. All right. Yeah. Now, have you ever examined the breakfast that you eat? What nutrients do you find there in cereals? Tell me. Iron, fibers, carbs, okay, sugar. What vitamins do you get from cereals? And some proteins, yes. What vitamins do you get from cereals? Vitamin A, B, C, D, E? Okay. Right, we'll examine that in our next presentations. But do you find vitamin C there in cereals? No vitamin C. What about the egg that you prepare, sunny side up? Do you find vitamin C? No vitamin C. So much of the proteins, yes. What about the fat? Okay. Yes, we'll examine these food preferences as we go. Okay. Now, second is our temperance. Oh yeah, before we go to temperance, the drinks. Water, we drink water. What else do we drink for as a pre-breakfast probably or breakfast? Juice, almond milk, coffee, tea, green tea. Okay. Yeah, so we will be looking into those food and drink preferences, if they could help us maintain the stamina and vitality of the bodily functions. Now, temperance. Is temperance an aspect of our choice? Yes, it is central to our choices. Because if you, for example, were presented of cake, okay? Now, do you know that the cake has a lot of sugar? Okay. And why then do you eat while knowing that sugar could cause certain disorders? Because it's sweet. It tastes good. It looks good. What else? Yes. It's very, very tempting to eat, right? Now compare it to an apple. It's good too, right? It's good too. But the different colors in cakes and so on, how they prepare it, it's just very tempting. So temperance is one of the major or the focal points in our choices. Okay? And at times, our temperance is at stake because most often we don't choose the right thing or the right food, or even in some other aspects, not only on food, but maybe cars, houses. How many of us would just settle on a simple car as compared to a more sophisticated? And then with houses, how many of you would just settle on a one-bedroom house or two-bedroom? If there are just a few of you in the house, then probably it's a choice to make, right? It's a choice to make. And temperance has something to do much more on the choice, because if we make choices, we see to it that they are within the boundaries of our preferences and our temperance. And then we also have to make decisions whether to be sedentary or be active, physically active. We may be engaged in physical fitness activities. How many of you, please raise your hand if you have regular physical fitness exercise? Okay, I'm very, very glad to see that many of you have your regular physical fitness exercise program for yourself. Now you may have, but did you know that there are those who may be engaged in the physical fitness program, they are not doing enough. Okay, and if it is not enough, then they may still be classified under those who may have sedentary lifestyle. How intense it is and how much time do you spend for your fitness exercise? So that could be part of our choice. The other one would be on our schedules. Our schedules. It's very challenging, right? Now we find ourselves running after time. Running after time. And I didn't like this when I was on a regular employment. I decided to move on to my wellness consulting instead of spending most of my time inside the classroom, just be holding the four corners of the classroom. I said I would better go out and share the gospel message through our health message to people. Yeah. That was a decision that we had to make. My wife and I decided to leave our careers in the academe to make less money, all right, but more contacts with others. Okay, and it's something good that we are able to interact with more people compared to when we were in the classroom. If in one classroom I had 32 students times five classes every semester, so you imagine that's about 3 times 5, 15, about 150 students per semester. Now we are interacting more than that while we are able to reach across boundaries, national boundaries, because we go global. We have more people who are benefited with going across the globe and across the country to the different states. Our schedules are too hectic, and that's a part of the decision that we make. Do we choose to be on the go always, or do we choose to have more time with the Lord, especially during the first few hours of the day? And then our priorities and our prerogatives. There are material and immaterial things that we decide upon each day. Now, let's look at some modern lifestyle trends in relation to the choices that we are talking about here. Bad eating habits and food preferences, as we mentioned. Abnormal appetite control and hormonal imbalances, and we'll be elaborating more on this. Boredom and sedentary lifestyle. Then we have fatigue after a long, hard day work. Now I wonder who among you have still so much energy after our 12-hour shifts? No one? Okay, or seldom? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we end up having problems at the end of the day because we no longer couldn't focus, not even have time to study our lessons, our Sabbath school lessons, and others no more time to spend time with the Lord for at least 30 minutes of worship and meditation, because we find ourselves too tired to do so. Okay? And then our stress levels are just up to the brim. People are stressed in and day out because of just a lot of things to do, they say, because we need to have jobs, 2 jobs. Some nurses, Filipino nurses at that, many of them will have to have 2 jobs, at least 2 jobs. The others, maybe in other states where the cost of living is very high, then they will have to have other jobs aside from their 2 main jobs. All right. And then the abnormal work shifts. Imagine you go for the graveyard shifts, night shifts, day shifts. Their night differentials is just very alluring for some nurses who would go for night shifts. Now, I would like us to look into the choices that we make. There are major endowments of a choice. First is that a choice is a definitive decision made between 2 or more options. So, if there is just one, you don't have to make a choice because there is only one, right? Now, if there are at least 2 choices there, then you have to choose between the 2. So, if you are going to choose one of them, you are making a choice. It's a process, right? And after you made a choice, you would see yourself making an action out of the choice that you made. So it's a basis for a course of action. You cannot act on something without making a choice, right? What else? It's a trigger factor for a cascade of reactions and consequences. That's why we have our presentation. The title is Lifestyle Choices, Lifetime Consequences, because many of our choices in terms of our diet and lifestyle would have lifetime consequences. Why? Because here, there is this, our choice is a trigger factor that would cause consequences after consequences. You see, if you are going to make a decision between the cake and the apple, if you decide for the cake, which we said it's very alluring and tempting, what could be the consequences? Because it has high sugar level, what would be the immediate reaction of your body? There would be increased blood sugar because the glycemic index of your cake may be 100%, right? 100. It has a 100 glycemic index. That means that it can have your sugar level to shoot up very high. Now, if you check your sugar level with high sugar at that particular point, what could be the next event that takes place in your body? With high sugar level in the bloodstream, of course you have hyperglycemia, high sugar level. What's the next? Oh yes, you can have, you may experience, if this takes place in a long-term basis, and it's repeated and repeated and repeated through time, then you may develop abnormality with your pancreatic functions. The pancreas would be affected, and its ability to make the insulin would be over-stimulated. And if it's overstimulated, then in the long run, it may give up, okay, and it may give in as well. Now, after the increased sugar level, you may notice here that some of these electrolytes would be used up in order to metabolize the high sugar level. Some of the B vitamins would be used up as well. And so much of the calcium coming from the bones would be leaching out with just mere high sugar level. And some of the white blood cells may be knocked out. They may die literally. And if some of these white blood cells will die literally, then your immune system is dramatically weakened. Now, in the morning, you may start feeling some sore throat, right? And with this sore throat, if you cannot take care of that, at times you may try to remedy that by getting some over-the-counter drugs. Now, instead of eating the proper type of food, we go for quick fix. And so what happens is that there would be much more other events that would take place after. It's a cascade of reactions and consequences, just eating one unhealthy food. Now, how do we choose? There are levels of our choosing. I would like us to look into the first level. The first level is physical and emotional level. We look for the physical attributes of the choice. Going back to between the apple and the cake. The cake has more colors into it. So we have bright green, pink, bright red, and so on. It's just very alluring, right? we judge by the physical attributes. And that's, at times, we become impulsive in our decisions based on the physical attributes. Even how we look other individuals, probably we underestimate individuals because they look rugged or they look like that. Okay? Man, because of our finite nature, because of our sinful nature, we tend just to be looking at the outward appearance of the person. Okay? Or probably a food item, we look at the outward appearance. That's physical. And then emotional, if we like it, we really like it, right? You cannot stop it. Okay. The next level is intellectual and educated. So what we do is we balance the merits and demerits. We try to do some research. So if it is apple, what benefits do I get? What nutrients do I get? What phytochemicals, what vitamins and minerals do I get? So we do some research on that. In contrast to the cake, what are the unhealthful ingredients that you find there? How is it made? And so on and so forth. How much calories do I get from this? So it's more of intellectual and educated level of choosing. And that if you find out that there are some unhealthful food additives there, then we tend, okay, I won't eat the cake again. I'm going to eat the apple. So that's intellectual and educated level of choosing. Now, the highest level of choosing is insightful. Now, this has something to do more of choices that we make for life. For example, we pray about it. We seek God's will. And we would like to know much more about how the Lord has something for us in store beyond the food, beyond what is there before our eyes. Just like how Esau made a decision for himself. Now, if I am going to prefer this food and sell my birthright, what could be the consequences? So we seek God's will, we seek God's help. While we may be confused on what to decide and how to decide, which direction to go, we ask the Lord's guidance, right? We ask the Lord for enlightenment so that beyond our confusion, beyond our human limitations, we are able to make the right decision. Now, choosing is very important for life. And that even with little children, we must help them develop the habit of making right choices. So how do we teach our children to choose?
By example.
By example. Yes, by example. We help them by example. Now, we simplify choices. For example, if there are 10 different choices, if we ask our kid or our child to choose between 10 choices, what would you like for your birthday? So he would start saying, I like spaghetti, I like other pastas of different flavors, I like cake, I like this, I like all of this. Now, if, for example, you may afford only three different choices. Now, out of the 10, you may start classifying them probably into 2. Okay, maybe expensive and inexpensive, readily available or not readily available. Or you may classify them as healthful or unhelpful. Okay? So you may categorize these choices, these 10 choices, into just simply 2 different categories. Now, if he chooses, okay, this one is healthy or unhealthy, then from this, let's say you have 5 healthy foods, but then from there you can further classify this unhealthy food, available or unavailable, costly or expensive or inexpensive, and so on. So simplify, help children to make choices by categorizing these different choices. The second one is for us to refer these choices according to God's commands. Now, in terms of food, do we find any instructions from the Lord in terms of food? Yes, we find some instructions, direct instructions that God has not only recommended but prescribed for human consumption. Okay? Between, for example, those seafoods and those sea grasses, all right, seaweeds, for example. Now, when I was doing my bachelor's program, I did my first training for my academic training in biology. And I did focus more on invertebrate animals, those without a backbone. And this would include the clams, what else? The squids, lobsters, shrimps, and so on and so forth. And to find out, when I was a little kid, among my classmates, they teased me so often because I wasn't eating those delicious food. Okay? And then it came to my mind, why is it that God had forbidden all these foods? Why not pork? Why not shrimp? Why not squid? Why not clams and shells and so on? Because I was always a subject of ridicule. But I challenged myself to search some more. So when I had a chance to go to college, I asked myself, Lord, please help me find the answers. So I did focus on the invertebrates, and then I found out that these are filter feeders, as we call them. These are scavengers at the floor of the sea. And then I wasn't contented with knowing that they are scavengers. What is it that we find there? So I had to look for the toxins that you find in clams, in all these sorts. So I found out that there is a high toxic load in these animals. And then there is also very high parasitic load. Most of them, some of them are intermediate hosts of these parasites, so that when we eat them with these parasites, humans become their definitive hosts. And some of these parasites may grow and ruin our health. Okay? So that I understood from there that God has prescribed some foods that are for human consumption. Okay? Now, what about the chicken and the fish and those others? They were prescribed for us food for the meantime. Do you understand the word for the meantime? Yes. Will they be food for life? No, they are supposed to be for the meantime food. They are just food for the meantime, temporary food, just for the time being, in other words. But after the flood, when there were already some vegetation, what happened to our palate, to our appetite? Yes, it became marred, and that our appetite, it was the one that humans just followed. We didn't follow God's instructions. Okay? So then, if we teach our children role modeling is important, and that we have to bring them back to what the Bible is telling us. Right. Now, we have to orient them that there is an existence of middle grounds in real life events. Let's take an example here. How do you make the strawberries as sweet as the cake? Okay, add sugar, all right. You can have some chocolates, dip it in chocolate, and then you have a chocolate-laden strawberries. Do you like that? Okay. Now, they say it's healthy because it's fruit. But the chocolate that is heavy laden with sugar will make it unhealthy. So there is a compromise or a middle ground. Okay. Now, what about some food additives that we put in the food? Like in the Philippines, we have some chicken cubes. Yes, chicken cubes. But did you know that those chicken cubes, those small ones that they pack in small packs that they put as part of the broth? So did you know that they have a lot of monosodium glutamate, and monosodium glutamate will cause problems with the transmission of electrical impulses between the brain, from the brain to the other parts of the body, and from the parts of the body back to the brain. And even impulses that would come back and forth between the different brain hemispheres and the different parts of the brain. So if you have high load of monosodium glutamate in the brain, this could cause problems with the transmission of electrical impulses. In other words, this could cause problems with mental functions, memory, and then focus, and so on. Even there is the alert system in the body. We call this as the reticular activating system. This would adversely be affected just with a small amount of monosodium glutamate that you find in that small cube. All right? And many of these products that you find, those ultra-processed foods in the grocery, they may be in cans, they may be in sausages, in all others. These food additives could cause the body to break down. So if you put that cube there, it has some monosodium glutamate, and you would say, I just use it as a broth for my vegetables. Okay, vegetables are healthy foods, yes, but then with the fact that you have added that monosodium glutamate, even just a pinch, would make it unhealthy. So we, most of the time, make some compromises. And these compromises may not be noticeable at times because the devil may present them in 0.0001%. We call them as negligible percentage. And if they are negligible, we can hardly notice their presence. Okay. Now, if we may read in Genesis 3, verse 5, there is an account there wherein we know that God would make us choose on something, so that making choices would be very imperative. There are deceptions that may take place. There are deceptions that take place even among our first parents. They were deceived. And they were presented with the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. It seemed like it was good, but then they were deceived. And thus the devil will present things that may be negligible at times, but yet this could ruin our health, our mental health included, and our spiritual well-being. So how do we make then wise decisions and wise choices in the midst of overwhelming deceptions of middle grounds, gray areas, and half-truths? First is we have to clear confusion and indecision, and we will be taking some points in the next presentations. And ask God for wisdom in prayer. Ask God for wisdom in prayer. Because if we are confused, Lord, am I making the right decision or not? If we are confused, then such good decision is just a prayer away. And we have verses in the Bible, just in James 1 verse 5, if any one of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. Just merely ask, right? And search your heart and analyze your motives. Now, in many of our decisions, they may have been built upon selfish motives. Now, why is it that God doesn't give us wisdom? Why is it that God doesn't answer our prayers? Because they are just about our selfish interests. So let's examine our hearts. As it says in Psalm 66 verse 18, if I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear. We don't have the right answers. God will not even answer our prayers and petitions if we regard iniquity in my heart. In your heart, in my heart. In James 4 verse 3 it says, you ask and you do not receive because you ask amiss, that you may spend it on your own pleasures. It's a selfish motive, right? Now the next one is for us to believe in God's guidance. So if we ask in prayer, He will give it to us. As it says in Psalms 32 verse 8, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will guide you with my eye. Now next is know God's instruction through His Word. In all our decisions every day, we have to be well-founded upon the Word of God by spending much more time upon the Word. And seek wise counsel. If you don't know, accept that you don't know. In one of the things that we teach our students is that if you don't know, ask. Ask from the right person. If you ask from other students who don't know, then you get the wrong answer, right? So you learn how to get the right answers from the right counsels. And then look for providences. Now there are verses, if you may like to look for these verses, you may take a picture of these verses, find the gems in all these verses. And then in the next slide, we are asked to make choices, right? Does God ask us to exercise the power of choice? Yes. At the foundation of the world, God has instituted our power of choice. Even among our first parents, we were given the power of choice. Adam and Eve were made to choose, as we could see in the Bible account in Genesis 2, verses 16 and 17. In Luke 10, 41 to 42, Martha and Mary were made to choose. What did Mary choose? She chose to sit at the feet of Jesus, while Martha was busy about, the cares of food, physical food to eat. But Mary chose to have the spiritual food for herself. So God wants us to exercise the power of choice. And in conclusion, I would like us to ponder on the verse in Deuteronomy 30, verse 19. It says, I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both you and your seed may live. So as we make choices for ourselves now, we are blessing our children and the next generations to come by making the right choice now. May God bless us as we make the right choices. Amen. Not only on the food, but also for some others. And I would like to leave this with you. We honor the giver of life as we take good care of our bodies. Health is a choice. Let's choose to be healthy. Amen. And so if you have questions for me, then you can just simply dial my number. I'm just a dial away. 956-340-6812. You can email me as well. May the Lord continually bless us as we make the right choice.